Going on about a year ago, I actually had a top 10 best graphics on the Nintendo Switch, and since then there's been a number of games that have released, and I wanted to update it with a bigger list here, a top 25, in addition to discussing what makes a game look incredible when it comes to everything. In this list, when we go down these top 25 games, it is highly subjective, so keep in mind there's going to be a bunch of games that maybe you think should be on the list that aren't. You can list them in the comments below in terms of your favorite games graphic wise, but when it comes down to what I look at with the Nintendo Switch game, it's everything that's factored in. It's the performance of the game, how smooth it looks on the screen, it's the art, it's the graphics, it's the technical prowess. There's a lot of things, so keep that in mind, especially if a game that maybe doesn't look technically as good as another game, but the art really shines in one way or another. So I've got 25 games here that we're going to go over, but before we do, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch videos first. Now let's go ahead and first jump into number 25, and that is Star Ocean: The Second Story R. This game is incredible because it takes the old school PS1 era graphics and modernizes it in a way that I have not seen done before. I love the 3D, 2.5D, HD, 2D type of look. It's kind of a mix mash of everything that Square Enix has been doing with their HD 2D, but then also putting it in a 2.5D world, and it looks incredible too. Awesome results on the Nintendo Switch. I love the little flourishes and touches and shine that Star Ocean: The Second Story R has on the platform. And even with the Nintendo Switch being a tablet hybrid platform, it was still able to hold up when it comes to the look of this game and the effects and everything. So Star Ocean: The Second Story R makes it number 25 on the list. Number 24, Okami HD, and man, I was really debating with this game being higher, but the problem is that there's so many really cool looking games on the Nintendo Switch. It's tough for a PlayStation 3 game, or essentially a PS2 game. I mean, it's a pretty old game at this point, but they really give it a nice facelift, but I think that it works to its advantage on here. There's not a lot of PS2 type of ports on my list here, but Okami HD's original art is so good. When they gave it a facelift, and then they again gave it like another Sheena facelift after the PS3 era, it still holds up incredibly well. The water paint aesthetic, color look, it's super cool. It's sharp. The textures are nice on the Nintendo Switch. It runs beautifully as well. The game just looks great. It's a really cool looking game, and technical wise, like at the time, it was a big game when it came out from Capcom, Clover Studios, and everything. It just didn't necessarily do as well as people thought, but people really praised the look of the game. They really praised the effects and what it did, and even now, all these years later at this point, it looks better than ever. So Okami HD, if you have not played it, check it out. Play on a Nintendo Switch OLED or play it on a nice OLED TV, and you will be blown away by how crisp and clean this game looks, especially with the colors. Coming in at number 23, we're just going to do a little bit of a combo tag team here with Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta 3. Both of these games have visual strengths in some areas and then weaknesses in other areas. Scope and scale wise, Bayonetta 3 absolutely has incredible looking graphics for an action title on the Nintendo Switch, but there's also some performance that kind of drags it down a little bit compared to Bayonetta 2, which necessarily isn't in terms of scope and scale as big as Bayonetta 3 and what it does, but graphically you can argue that it looks just as good, if not a bit sharper, because it is a bit more downsized. But both games are some of the best looking action games on the platform, hands down. There's some nice visuals, effects, and things that happen in Bayonetta 2 and in Bayonetta 3. Specifically with Bayonetta 3, I absolutely love the destructible environments. I think it's super cool to thrash things about and kind of be able to knock over everything and have the dust and particles and everything kind of fly up, something that necessarily wasn't in Bayonetta 2 too much. But then if you look at Bayonetta 2, you look at the art style and you look at what they've done with the designs of the different angels and demons and Bayonetta herself, and just the graphical textures and look of some of the monsters and bosses, it is incredible to see. So both of these games have absolutely incredible and stunning moments when you're just like, wow, this just looks crazy, but then also some parts that necessarily aren't so great. But overall, the full package, if you look at the art, you look at the visuals, you look at what it does and compare it to many other action games on the platform and the system itself, it's hard to say that Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta 3 aren't some of of the best looking games from a vibrancy, from a art style wise, from a technical polish, and how the games are played. This is easily one of the best games graphically on the platform, and that's why it makes it in to number 23 on my list. Number 22, Nier Automata, the End of Yura Edition. This game would have absolutely been higher if some of the technical performance maybe would have been a bit better, but overall, as a AAA big third-party port on the platform, you're not going to get much better than Nier Automata, the End of Yura Edition. This is a marvel on the Nintendo Switch because of how big the game is. This is an open world game on the PlayStation 4, and they brought it over near seamlessly and actually a little bit of a higher resolution. Frame rate isn't quite there with the 60 frames, or at least trying to hit 60 frames, but it still has a respectable frame rate overall for the experience with some dips. So smoothness wise takes a little bit of a hit, but when it comes to graphics and the look of the game and the art, it's almost second to none. Like, it's that good with Nier Automata, the End of Yura Edition. I love the little effects in the environment. I love the overall polish of the visuals. And of course, the art, once again, is the shining beacon here that really puts Nier Automata over a lot of the other third-party games that I was looking at, a lot of the other big third-party ports that have came over because of the scope and size of the game and how they're able to get it on the Nintendo Switch intact and looking pretty much as good graphically as the PlayStation 4 version of the game. So Nier Automata has to make it to number 22 on the list. Number 21, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. This game is a straight up port enhanced from the Nintendo Wii U, but it's even cleaner. It looks even better. I think that the resolution's a bit higher, and it's already got a smooth Mario aesthetic to it. There isn't really anything too crazy going on in terms of visual effects and flourishes, but I think it's when you get to Bowser's Fury, then you start realizing, okay, they actually use the Nintendo Switch a bit more here, because that game looks incredible. It looks so good on a Nintendo Switch OLED, and you start seeing some of the effects and the polish and the shine that it does have, and even how it runs for the most part. A couple little dips here and there in Bowser's Fury when you're playing in 30 frames per second in handheld mode. I think maybe to conserve battery just a bit, otherwise it would kill it. But I do think that it looks great. The Bowser's Fury parts are awesome when the screen goes kind of all dark, the sky gets black, and everything just gets crazy on screen. And it's got a nice flourish of effects that happen when that does go through. So to me, it's the art in addition to the upgrades and what they were able to do with the look of the game. And it was already one of the best looking Wii U games, and they brought it over and it looks better. So Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury makes it to number 21 on my list. Coming in at number 20, it's Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. This is an awesome high-end conversion from the PlayStation 4 version of the game, but it's built specifically for the Nintendo Switch. So that's why I think if you compare it to a lot of other Nintendo Switch games out there, Dragon Quest XI-S just really rises above it. They built it specifically for the platform, and it really shows in terms of what they were able to do to get it as close as possible. Now, it's still not quite as good looking as its HD brethren on the PlayStation and Xbox, but it still is one of the best looking JRPGs on the platform, especially when you consider the art, scope, and scale of it. Dragon Quest does a lot of things that other games just simply can't do or didn't have the money to do, but obviously they were able to do that because they knew that it was going to sell quite a bit as the Switch was booming back in 2019, and they wanted to really take advantage of the platform and Unreal Engine 4. So to me, Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age, it's got that legendary art style from Akira Toriyama from Dragon Ball Z fame, and it shines really well in this. But I think one of the most impressive things with it is how the performance is with the game. It really never buckles down too much to that. The art and the resolution and everything still holds up, so you're going to get a very even and good balance across the board throughout the time that you play Dragon Quest XI. So Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age makes it to number 20 on the list. Number 19, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 plus Future Redeemed. So if this game simply had just a bit more when it comes to the resolution or look of it, I do feel that it could be higher on the list because the art is out of control. I love the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 art, how it's drawn, the cutscenes, the visual polish on those. This game is incredible. It's just some of the other things because of what they're trying to do on a scope and scale wise that drops it down a bit. But make no mistake, I think this game was higher before, However, make no mistake, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 plus Future Redeemed is still one of the best games graphically overall if you take into account everything with the art, with the scope of the game. Because remember, you can have up to 7 characters all fighting at the same time, seamlessly going into a battle in a open world, in a true open world. That is absolutely insane. I don't think there's a single other game on this list that can do that and hold up visually and technical performance wise. So when you start factoring in everything here with how good Xenoblade does look as a JRPG on the platform, I think it's really a no-brainer to have it within the top 20 here, because Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is very impressive on a technical level, and they tried really hard to make sure, especially since Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles the original kind of fell short when it comes to what people were maybe wanting on the Switch. Some awesome highs, but some really low lows, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 plus Future Redeemed fixed a lot of those with a few issues here and there, but overall still a great looking game. Number 18, Splatoon 3. Splatoon 3, fantastic upgrade over Splatoon 2. Visually, it's very similar. The art style obviously is the same as Splatoon 1, Splatoon 2, but I think that Splatoon 3 really made a nice jump in terms of what we've seen over the previous Splatoon games. You have much better detail on the characters. When it looks through the environments, that's better as well. Everything just looks a lot better, shinier, and nicer every single time that I go back and play Splatoon. If there is a Splatfest or if there's a different event that's happening, anytime that I watch somebody else play it, I compare it to all the hours that I played in Splatoon 2, and you just see that there is a nice bump over it, despite the games definitely looking similar. But I think that they did a great job with Splatoon 3 overall, especially with the armor pieces and the guns. I think that has been upgraded a lot, and I really enjoy looking at some of the different things in the game, especially at high level play, because it is nice to look at. And the best thing about this game is that it runs rock solid. You're going to get great performance in single player and multiplayer, and I think that the colorful visuals combined simplistic but good art style and also the performance, everything just kind of blends together, the art, to just get a fantastic looking game on the platform. And that's the reason why Splatoon 3 is number 18 on my list. Number 17, the Ori Collection. And I love talking about the Ori Collection because I think that this is one of the technical marvels on the Nintendo Switch that goes unpraised. And yes, it's 2D and people say, oh my gosh, 2D, what's so big about that? But honestly, even if you look at the technical breakdown, like on Digital Foundry of the Ori Collection, it is very impressive and taxing to get this type of game, especially with how many layers and what they're doing graphically and what they're doing on the Nintendo Switch compared to where it came from with Xbox and PC. It is very impressive at a smooth, rock solid 60 frames per second with all the different effects, shadow, lighting, different layers that they have within the graphical backgrounds and the foreground. It's really impressive stuff, and both Ori games look great. Ori and the Will of the Wisp is just incredible in terms of how they use the lighting and how they actually have the environments and little details and effects. It's just super cool to see, and one of the best looking games. I'm telling you, you get the Ori Collection on the Nintendo Switch, you drop that on your Nintendo Switch OLED and start playing, man, you are going to be like, all right, yeah, this game just looks incredible. So I had to include it on my list here, and that's why it's at number 17. Number 16, Rayman Legends Definitive Edition. This is a Wii U game, but it's still one of the best ones. The UbiArt engine is still just kicking, and it's just looking phenomenal. And I think that the thing that I love about this game the most is just the vibrancy of it. The colors, the vibrancy, along with the art, the character designs, everything there is like, Rayman, I'm not in love with like the music and some of the other things within the game, but you can't really deny how awesome it is in terms of the drawings and the art and everything. And technical performance wise, it's not the cleanest version of the game, but it still runs at 60 frames per second. It still looks really good. It still animates. Everything there gives you a great visual experience. And I think that's the incredible thing about Nintendo Switch games. You can't just look at it from the technical prowess, right? You're looking at it from so many different angles. And I think really any platform when it comes down to it, but Rayman Legends is absolutely the proof of, yeah, when you have an incredible art style, it can just look, might not be technically better in terms of polygons and graphics than some of the other games or anything like that, but look-wise, it just has a pleasing aesthetic to it that's hard to forget, and that's why I have it in at number 16 on my list. Number 15, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This is by far the best looking Kirby game that's ever been released. We can all pretty much state that, as Nintendo was a little bit late to the HD game. And I feel that Kirby and the Forgotten Land, even if you're looking at it from just an overall scope, I think that the extra little details and things like the characters' hats or something like that, I think that the details in the environments, look at the different fire effects or ice effects or different things in terms of Kirby's power-ups. All of those are incredibly nice and detailed. I love the lighting in the game. The lighting in the game is fantastic. There's one level that specifically makes use of the Nintendo Switch in all of its glory, man. They really tried, and it's like the light bulb level in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and that lighting is so good, especially if you're playing on a Nintendo Switch OLED, which is a recurring theme here, guys. If you're playing on an OLED, because the colors and vibrancy of a lot of these games, those are some of the things that really make it stand out, really make the visuals pop and flare, especially for a platform like the Nintendo Switch that's not as powerful as other platforms out there to push all the polygons. A lot of developers get very creative in terms of how they make their games look, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land is absolutely one of those games. I was impressed throughout the whole time that I played it in the snow levels and in the different areas. The water looks great and animates and flows. The art is really good. Kirby and the Forgotten Land easily could have been higher on this list, but there's just so many cool, great looking games on the platform. It's honestly really hard. It took me a while to pick the top 25 here, and there's probably some mistakes. I'll probably have different games in here by the end of next year if more titles come out. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land makes it number 15 on the list. Number 14, Persona 5 Royal. Once again, one of the rare ports over from the Xbox and PlayStation to the Nintendo Switch, but Persona 5 Royal, from a scope and art style category, almost unmatched on the platform. You've got some incredible art here. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say that Persona 5 is underrated with its art, but people just need to talk about it more because the art goes dummy in this game. How the personas are drawn, how the characters look, how it's animated, how they put together the anime plus the regular visuals and aesthetic, and they blend that almost near seamlessly. It's super cool to see. It's just a spectacle overall, and they're able to get this big game originally on the PlayStation 3, but then put on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 and Xbox and everything. This is not that original PlayStation 3 version of the game. It's got some of the extra little graphics and polishing effects that you'd see in later versions. So I do feel that Persona 5 Royal, if you count everything when it comes down to it, the visual look, the cleanness, the resolution, the art, it's absolutely a top graphics game on the platform, and that's exactly why it's number 14 on my list. Number 13, Octopath Traveler 2, the HD 2D engine, HD 2D Unreal Engine 4 comes through once again with Square Enix, and there's not enough that I can say about this game that can truly explain visually the type of awesomeness that your eyes are going to entail when you embark on this journey with Octopath Traveler 2. It really is a trip because you're playing something that's old school, but at the same time, you're playing something that also has some modern touches and flourishes here and there that you haven't seen before, or that just looks incredibly pleasing to your eyes, and that's what makes it so cool. That's what makes it so high on this list. And sometimes for some people, it's going to be like I don't like it, or oh my gosh, this looks incredible, it's the best looking thing that I've seen. But they've even improved it. I think that Octopath Traveler 1 is a little bit jarring on the eyes because of some of the edges and cuts, and by Octopath Traveler 2, a number of years have went by and they've refined that HD 2D engine look and everything, and it gets better and better every time they put something out. Live Alive was one of the games that improved upon the HD 2D so much, and now you have this game, Octopath Traveler 2, their latest masterpiece, and it really is visually a flourish and masterpiece that's hard to replicate on the platform and hard to just replicate overall, and it looks stunning. You will be impressed with some of the things here, and I think that it really lends well to a big TV. I think that's one of the things that you're going to start seeing with a lot of these games, is that they're kind of big TV works really well, and also small screen it works well, whereas some of the games maybe not so much of the big TV, but if it's on an OLED, it's incredible. Not with Octopath Traveler 2. It's incredible on both, and that's the reason why it's number 13 on the list. Number 12, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the tried and true. This is always going to make it to the list here because of the visual aesthetics and the cleanness and the vibrancy of the game that was actually even improved from what we got from Mario Kart 8 on the Nintendo Wii U. That game was already the best looking game, or one of the best looking games on the Wii U, along with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and they made it even look better when it comes down to it. Now there is a little bit of maybe not as great when it comes to the DLC courses and some of the graphics in those, but overall, if you're looking at everything, I mean, there's not a kart racer in its class. Let's just say that other kart racers, in my opinion, don't look anywhere near as good, with the exception of maybe the Crash Team Kart Racing. There's some of them out there, but this is a exciting and great looking game overall, and it runs rock solid too. You also have to factor that in. It's 60 frames per second. It's at 1080p. It's a super clean look. Everything is polished and nice, and as you go through the courses, you can point out little details in the background and everything, and just like many of these games, on the OLED TV, blown up on a big TV, looks great. If you're playing it on your Nintendo Switch OLED, looks awesome. Or even if you're playing it on a Switch Lite, I actually played with my little nephew quite a bit, and he has a Switch Lite, and it looks great on there too. So pretty much in all types of ways, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is going to be a great looking game for everybody that tries it out. Coming in at number 11 is Metroid Dread. And the reason why Metroid Dread makes it onto the list here this high is because of the art style combined with the aesthetic and the coolness factor. Coolness is a factor here, and the people who drew Metroid Dread, the art within this game, the design and the look, along with taking some of the best things, taking some of the little graphical techniques and little things that you can do when you zoom in on Samus or the designs of Ravenbeak, they are gods at what they do, man. This is some of the best work that I've seen, because this is not a massive, huge $70 million plus budget game where they've got all this different resources and people to make. It's a small team with Mercury Steam and Nintendo, some of their staffers working on this, and they were able to get the most out of a 2D Metroidvania game with the budget that they had. But it's not only saying, oh, it's sympathy points because of budget and that's why it's up here. Metroid Dread looks fantastic. Go and play it on the OLED, on the big TV blown up. It looks great and it animates. It's super smooth, so it's everything combined. That killer art style, very much like Persona 5, the art is just dummy on there. That killer art style combined with everything else that we're talking about, the graphical flourish, effects, polish, it really, to me, makes it one of the best looking games to play, where you can pick it up, play it, and it looks good. It's almost timeless. 20 years from now, you can pick this game up and say, wow, that looks better than games that had better technical graphics and prowess than it at the same time. So to me, Metroid Dread in at number 11 on the list. All right, guys, we're in the top 10 here. Let's go ahead and drop into it with Luigi's Mansion 3, a phenomenal looking game in its own right, and could have been higher, and I'm probably going to be saying that quite a bit when it comes to some of these games here. Luigi's Mansion 3, fantastic lighting, shadows, effects, everything in this game just looks good. It's a little bit lower on this list just because the environments are kind of smaller, so on a scope and scale wise, it's not as impressive as some of these other games. But if you look at it, it's one of the smaller enclosed space games, but still very high, number 10 on the list. So Luigi's Mansion is still very impressive overall if you look at what it does. You look at Luigi's never looked better when it comes down to it, but also some of like the dust and the effects that happen, like when you suck up ghosts or when you explore an environment, it's all super clean and very surprising in terms of it. Many people have Luigi's Mansion as the best looking game on the platform, and I'm not necessarily going to argue with them there. So in at number 10 is Luigi's Mansion 3. Coming in at number 9, Shin Megami Tensei 5. And this game probably could have been higher if the performance and the smoothness of the visuals held up in every single area. There are a few hiccups here and there, but make no mistake, graphics wise, I was looking through in terms of third-party big games and JRPGs, and honestly, it's pretty much at the top here. It's one of the best compared to so many other games. Visually speaking, the demons in the game look better than a lot of Persona 5's demons, or even Soul Hackers 2 on the Xbox and PlayStation, like PS5 and Xbox Series. Like, the demons look better in Shin Megami Tensei 5, and the art is absolutely better. The design of the characters is so much better with Nahabino and many other things. So if you're looking at from everything wise, you look at the graphics, but it has this unique vibe to it and polish, and the environments in terms of the size, it's still impressive. Obviously, there's some cutbacks and limitations here and there, but overall, I still feel that SMT5 is one of the best looking games, especially when you just start talking about the pure demon models and how those look and how they blend in to the environments out there. It's pretty cool to see them running around in a big open space, be able to go right into those battles and not necessarily have random battles that just pop up. So visually speaking, it holds up. If the frame rate was just up there a bit more, this could probably be higher on the list. So the smoothness of it, because it gets kind of choppy sometimes there. But overall, I still feel Shin Megami Tensei 5 is one of the best games graphically on the platform, and that's why it's number 9 on my list. Number 8. Metroid Prime Remastered, one of these games from the 6th generation that holds up so well, very similar to what I talked about before with Okami HD. The original art, the original way that the game was made and how they drew it holds up so well that an HD facelift with some retexturing, some remaking work here and there for some things really did wonders. This game still has all the cool fog effects, the visuals, the lighting, the environments are detailed. They've done an incredible job really just going through and enhancing everything in this game. I was blown away by how good Samus looked. I was expecting it just to be like, okay, Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, right? Or Metroid Prime 1 in HD, but it's actually a bit more than that. They went beyond what you'd expect with just like a 1080p facelift. You're going to be going through and exploring these environments and be in awe, especially if you're playing on that Nintendo Switch OLED, but it holds up also docked because it's at 1080p resolution, and you can tell that they actually took their time to go through and make sure everything that you see on the screen in that 16:9 widescreen looks awesome and looks good. Metroid Prime Remastered could have been higher on the list, but I think that it sits in nicely at number 8. Number 7, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and this was a breath of fresh air coming over in terms of the Zelda franchise and what this game does. I think that Breath of the Wild really shows that Monolith Soft, along with the Zelda team, Nintendo, everybody that was involved in making this game for this platform, porting it over from the Wii U, really had to work hard to make sure everything held up in the resolution and in the scope and scale. But the graphics were stunning. When you first went out there to Hyrule and you saw everything, it felt like it just flowed like a painting or something like that. And the graphics overall, when it comes to an open-ended action adventure open world game, there aren't really many better than The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There pretty much isn't anything from a third-party perspective, and it's tough for Nintendo, well, there's another game that we're going to talk about, to even beat out what they've done on an open world scale. So if you factor in that, yes, maybe the performance isn't as good as some of the other games, the 60 frames for the smoothness of the visuals, but the scope and scale along with the art and the look, plus the effects that you see, like when you slash or when you shoot a bow and arrow, when you have different effects, it's still really good, despite it being a Wii U port. So Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, still one of the best on the platform, and that's why it makes it number 7 on my list. Number 6, Super Mario Odyssey. Oh man, this could have been a top 5 game. Maybe it should have been a top 5 game, but the top 5 or the top 6 here is so competitive, and there's so many things that I'm factoring in when it comes to enemies on screen, scope and scale, art and everything. Super Mario Odyssey has it all. It has the performance when it comes down to the 60 frames. It has the detail with Mario. It has the look, a bit simplistic in some of the art style, but still one of the best overall. The environments are super nice. You see little details, you see nice effects, you see so many things in this game that you're thinking like, man, other developers couldn't even do anywhere near this on the platform. And this was a near launch title. It was a launch window game within the first year of the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo really outdid themselves. Easily one of the best looking Mario games ever made in my opinion. So I have to have Super Mario Odyssey in at number 6 on my list. All right, we're in the top 5 here. Let's go ahead and jump into it with Monster Hunter Rise plus Sunbreak. This is by far, from a scope and scale standpoint, one of the most impressive third-party games on the platform. That RE engine is doing double time, overtime, triple time in terms of carrying the Nintendo Switch and graphical prowess of this. It's got the details that you would see in Xbox and PlayStation games, but it also has the performance that isn't dipping down below. It really is rock solid. So for smoothness purposes, Monster Hunter Rise is a cut above a lot of these other games on the platform. The Sunbreak DLC even looks better when it comes to the details within the monsters, when it comes to environmental effects, when it comes to the different weapons that you have. Everything is just super smooth in Monster Hunter Rise plus the Sunbreak DLC. I was very impressed with how the character models were with the different monsters and the even characters' armor pieces, everything kind of put together, but also the detail when you go out into the environments, how huge the environments were. The environments are nice and good size. It's not like they're saying, okay, let's downscale Monster Hunter for the Nintendo Switch. They are huge environments that all have great details, nice water effects, nice flowing canyons and rivers and mountains. It just looks great. And every time that I see Monster Hunter Rise being played on the Nintendo Switch platform, or when I was playing it myself on my OLED or playing it on my TV, I got an OLED TV as well, I was blown away by how awesome it is. There's just so much content. The art is really good in the game as well. There's really no deficiencies in Monster Hunter Rise outside of that it's not at 60 frames per second. When it comes to a visual package, everything else is right up there. Everything else is pretty much an A or a B plus overall. If you're looking at art, you're looking at technical performance, you're looking at everything, Monster Hunter Rise is up there. So I had to put it in at number 5 on my list. Number 4, Astral Chain. Oh my gosh, this is one of the games I think that I had at number 1 or definitely close to 1 or 2 before. And Astral Chain, the only deficiency, the only issue is some of the performance later. If this was a 60 frames per second game with that art style, with the slickness of the visuals, with the Ghost in the Shell dark aesthetic, futuristic city looking type of game, and the detail within the environments and the characters, this would absolutely be maybe the top game or definitely a top 3 game. I think it would be more of a no-brainer top game or top 3 game. That's the only issue, but everything else is so good in this game. Nintendo and Platinum were able to really tap in to the Nintendo Switch and get the best out of it. Yes, it's kind of the anime aesthetic and maybe the art for some people isn't as strong, but for me, I love it. I love Ghost in the Shell, and the guy who did that kind of replicated kind of some of his work with this here. And Astral Chain has some of the best environments as well, some of the best effects. That first level as you're speeding through in the motorcycle just looks amazing. The different monsters that flow in and out, the amount of monsters on screen, some of the open-ended segments in the city that you can do as well. There's a lot of awesome things in Astral Chain from a visual perspective, and that's why it's number 4 on my list. All right, guys, we've got the top 3 here. Let's start off with Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and I was surprised this game being this high. When I was going through and I was looking, I'm like, okay, what games are going to be slotted in here? I didn't think Super Mario Bros. Wonder would be there, and hopefully this isn't a recency bias thing, but goodness gracious, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a beautiful looking game. From a 2D perspective, I don't think I've played a game more beautiful overall than Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but the effects, the wonder effects, the graphical shine, polish and details, the animations, the looks, the expressions, everything just creates this visual masterpiece for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It really is awesome, but there's also little effects and details in the background. It's not basic, it's not plain, it's not flat like the new Super Mario Bros. Series and sometimes how Mario Maker with the obvious older art styles or whatever the Super Mario 3D World art styles, it looks just a little bit plain, but not with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Everything looks alive, vibrant, colorful. It just looks like it's popping with flavor and with tone and attitude, and that to me just creates a graphical flow with its rock solid performance, its rock solid visuals and sharpness that to me just elevates itself above so many other games on the Nintendo Switch. And it's rock solid when it comes to the performance of the game, even with 4 people on the same screen. If you're playing multiplayer, you're playing online, everything is just holding up incredibly well. So to me, with all the work that was done to the animation and to the polish and to the shine of the game and to the look of it, that brought it above many other games, and why I had to have it at number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And this game, while one of the older titles when it comes to Nintendo Switch came out in late 2018, to me Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is still holding up so well. You can play with 16 characters all on the same screen, all in 1080p 60 frames per second, with a ton of items all on screen on one of the biggest stages, and it doesn't drop a frame. The smoothness within Super Smash Bros. Is one of the main reasons why it's so high up on this list. Technically, performance-wise, the smoothness just adds in to the incredible art style that they were able to take all these different characters that do not have a uniform art style and make a Super Smash Bros. Style that looks incredible everywhere that you play it, whether you're playing on a Switch Lite, whether you're playing on a Switch OLED, on a TV, the resolution, the graphics, everything just looks good. The effects, the lighting, the details, the characters. It is hard as heck. Anybody that's an artist or who has drawn before, it is hard as heck to get these different characters like Solid Snake and Ken from Street Fighter, Ryu, and all these different characters, Sonic the Hedgehog, to all kind of look and feel that they belong and not out of place like a Mugen fighter or something like that, right? Where you can clearly see, okay, these are different art styles, different types of characters and everything, but everything blends seamlessly to create a euphoric type of game that has its own franchise, its own style, the Super Smash Bros. Style. And graphics wise, this is going to be a timeless game, very much like Super Smash Bros. Melee and Brawl. You can still go back to those games and play and say, okay, that was really good, top of the class for the system that it's on. Same thing with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's still going to look great because what they were able to do with the visual aesthetics, the smoothness of the game, the art style, and blending it all into their own unique brand instead of just trying to adapt whatever it is and put it on there and just have like a mismatch. It all flows perfectly, and that's why Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, a often forgotten, incredible visual game, because people just talk about the characters and everything, it's still one of the best graphically on the platform. That's why it's number 2. And coming in at number 1, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And the reason why I have Tears of the Kingdom up at number 1 on here is because it's the biggest scope and scale game. There's clearly no other game that matches the scope and scale of Tears of the Kingdom, but what they're able to do visually holding up. If you look at the technical performance, you watch the Digital Foundry and everything, yes, there's some dips when you pull out the Ultra Hand or something like that. There's some dips here and there in places, but what they were able to do to have a seamless open world and hold up at a 1080p visuals or higher than 900p, higher than what they did with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and have that to where you can seamlessly go from the sky all the way down to the depths, which there are areas that you do that to me visually was one of the best things. So it's a art style, scope, and scale. When you factor in every single thing, to me, it's graphics wise the best from a technical perspective, in addition to visuals, when you just combine art and everything in there. Once again, it's not going to be necessarily purely, I look at this and that's the best graphics, but if you factor in so many different things, I think that Tears of the Kingdom takes it for me. You can still go back and play that game, and I think that it's going to be somewhat timeless as well over other games that obviously have better graphics than it because of what you're doing in the world, because of the different things that you can do, the physics, the environments, and some of the just graphics, just flat out, some of the models and the textures on the characters are really good. It looks awesome and better, way better than Breath of the Wild in many different areas and many different aspects, and Breath of the Wild is easily still one of the best looking games on the platform. So I know not everybody's going to agree with Tears of the Kingdom being #1, and that's completely fine. To me, it's just so impressive in terms of the scope and scale and the art and everything that it does that it had it to make it to #1. It's just pushing the system to new heights that no other game on this list did, and it holds up very well with some dips here and there. So Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is #1 in terms of graphics, but what are your top 25 or best graphics on the platform? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other Nintendo Switch top 25 best lists right here on screen. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.